Okay, everybody, welcome. We have a wonderful guest today, Maria Concha, Manifesting Ninja, who is a life coach. And I'm Jason Sullivan, your host. And this is the Underground Kings Club podcast. And we have a special guest today who's awesome and who has a lot of wonderful things going on. And I thought you guys would get a great deal of knowledge and wisdom from her. I know I do. So with no further ado, I welcome Maria Concha. Welcome to the podcast and thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So let's get right into it. I thought of a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk to you about, but the first question I wanted to ask is, who is Maria Concha?
So Maria Concha is, I think, a multitude of things. I grew up girl from Queens, New York, as you did, I believe. I come from a Colombian ethnicity. My parents are Colombian. And from the get, when I was young, I was an actress. I wanted to be an actress and was very inspired by the things I saw on TV and just the things I saw around me. Very happy kid. And very motivated by joy and, always striving to make mom happy and, kind of just striving. I just remember being at a very young age, just wanting to accomplish things and, just really make my mom proud. So much so that I was like I was always wearing this like smile on my face, even though like in the background, things were pretty dark. But I always kind of held this like smile, and this now is, I see that as a mask, but that was like just the way that, I guess I protected myself from everything that was going on. But yeah, always like an upbeat kid and striving for, so much. And then growing up, you continue to go through things. I started to find my way in the world, and I became an actress at a young age. And let me tell you, when you go into that world is no joke. It really can either make you or break you. Thankfully for me, it really built me up. And so I went on that path, New York City struggling actress for a while. And then at some point in my life, I just decided that I was done struggling with that life and the inconsistency. I was very triggered by how inconsistent it was. And so I just shifted completely into the world that I am in now, not by mistake. Like, I don't think people who know me, I don't think they're like, oh, wow, what is she doing? Would have never thought that. Definitely not, because of just the way that I was personally. These are the work that I do now is the work that I've been doing for so long, just by myself, but now I help others. So yeah, I think in a nutshell, just like overall, I think I'm always striving for better, not only for myself, but for others. My why is so important to me, why I do what I do. And it goes beyond me. Like, I'm sure you have your why. And that's why this work that I do is non-negotiable. It's a must. And so, yeah, that's me.
Okay, let me ask you, what were some of the trials and adversities that you faced as a young woman that as the Maria Concha as a young woman, as opposed to today, what are some of the similarities or differences that you see as that person? And how do you see it now in retrospect, how you were dealing with those things as you would today as this person that you've become?
Yeah, I mean, when I was probably, growing up, maybe I would say like 5 years old, like my dad was in and out of jail. I didn't really know him. And I remember, I think probably the biggest thing that happened that I can remember that is, I guess you could say, one of the first early traumas was just seeing my dad get arrested by like SWAT. And that was wild. It was like straight up out of a movie. And just getting him, like watching, like seeing your dad just, have a bunch of just police officers, come and like tackle him. And we were just going out with my mom and my dad. Anyhow, and then they like raided our house. And it's, as a kid, you don't know what the heck is going on. And I didn't realize that that was even a trauma till I got older and I shared the story as not even because I was sharing it in a like a sad way. I was like, yeah, so I grew up and like this happened. And I remember the look on my therapist's face. And she kind of was like, well, maybe let's like dig into that a little bit. And so like that was like one of the things, the first ones I remember, but there were so many of those moments, right, where I did that. Also just not having my dad there, and just growing up where I had a lot of people in and out of my house. I dealt with, I think probably the most traumatic has been just sexual abuse. That was super, traumatic for me. And that happened in my house, and, it continued to happen. And, but I think the most traumatizing part about that, Jason, is telling the person that's supposed to protect you, my mom, and them not protecting you, even after you speak up. Like, that is so scary. It's like, wait, if I just spoke up and I'm not being protected, what is happening here? I think that looking back at those moments, I feel really fortunate to have reacted in the way that I did, meaning that when I finally spoke up, I think I was about 15 years old or so. And I spoke up, and I ended up I needed to leave my house, because how could I continue to live in this house where it just was no longer safe? Like, clearly was no longer safe. I wasn't being protected. And so I ended up moving to my sister's house, who was a baby herself, a new mom, teenage mom, so she couldn't really take care of me and watch me, because she had her baby. So from there on, it was a life of just me on my own. And I ended up moving out of her house, I believe at like 17. And I was just living on my own with roommates, which is a very strange situation at a young age. You kind of don't understand what's happening. Also, like, don't have my mom during all these, experiences. It was just really confusing. And then being in high school, it's, everyone is like, or at least you think there's some normalcy to their lives. You don't know what's going on behind closed door. But yeah, I had over 20 jobs before the age of 23. I mean, so many jobs. And overall, though, I have to say, looking back, I remember there was like a point where the truth is I could have gone down a really dark path, because it's not like the options weren't there. The opportunities were there. But I didn't. I ended up seeking out help. And so I got myself into therapy. I was grateful that I had insurance. I don't remember how I had insurance. I think through maybe school or something, high school or college. And no, high school at this point, it was high school. And so I ended up just like going down a route of therapy, and that forever changed my life. Just that route and that support. It really just takes one person to listen and to believe in you, to change your life, the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was just, it was rough. It was definitely not.
What you saying all of this, I didn't even imagine that there would be so many things that I can identify with in this conversation. And yet there is. There are so many aspects of our background that are similar, with the sexual abuse, the environments that we come from, the things that we thought were normality. You know what I mean? And when we speak of it, and I can identify in so many ways of when we speak of things coming from those backgrounds in such a normal fashion, because they are normal to us, right? When we talk about going to prison or going to jail and having people in your life that are in prison, that was normal. I remember growing up and having those conversations with people and saying, yeah, my friend got killed, or, someone, my friend's father's in prison for a long time, or my father's, does this and that. And it's like, to me, it's like, that's just a normal conversation. But then when you speak to people that are outside the bubble in which we come from, you realize how small that world is, and you realize how abnormal it actually is. And that the programming in which we're taught to become accustomed to that, you know what I mean? And that's okay, that it's that those things are normal when they're totally not normal. You know what I mean? And I didn't, again, I didn't realize just in this few words that you said, how much I would actually identify with. So now that being that young girl going through those traumatic experiences and having that stuff, you know, being that you did go to therapy, which is awesome, right? Because you did take the proper route and you did go down the right path because like you said, you had the options to go down the dark path, right? We all do. It's so easily accessible. And unfortunately for in my story, that was the path that I took in order to get to where I am today. I had to go really dark. But given that circumstance, do you feel that that was the catalyst to you becoming the woman that you are?
I think, honestly, I think I was always meant to be this person. I do. I think I was, regardless. I just think that this gave me the humanity and the empathy to really reach and impact people on a deeper level. That's just, you can't go through something like this and
Absolutely.
and you know what I mean? So I think that I was born to do what I'm doing and more, but I think that this allowed me to just have massive empathy for people and be able to have people relate to me. Because the truth is, Jason, like what I do, like I'm not reinventing the wheel here. This is not like rocket science. You know, and so, but what separates me, I think, from other people is and will allow people to listen to me and resonate is my story. And you know what I mean? And that's my background. And so I think that this is that that definitely has helped me see things through a completely different lens. I'm so grateful. I'm sure you are as well. It sucked in the moment and it was very scary. And as a young woman in the world, to be alone at such a young age, that is just terrifying.
Yeah.
But it definitely amplified, I think, who I was always meant to be.
Now, what would you say to someone who is coming from a similar background and similar circumstance, who can only see the trauma, right? We all know that, you know, when we go through trials and tribulation, that a lot of times we tend to fall prey to victimhood, right? And now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying in any circumstance that you're not a victim, because we all have been victims at some point to some
Yeah.
degree. What I'm saying is how we play those cards makes a major difference in how we heal. So what would you say to somebody that's going through those circumstances that see life in that way of victimhood that says, why me? What would you encourage them? How would you encourage them? What would you say to them? What kind of words of wisdom would you give to them to say, hey, listen, things will be all right?
Well, first off, I want to like acknowledge anyone who's been through any kind of trauma, right? Because I think on some level we have all been through some trauma. And it's not about comparing like my trauma is like worse than yours. Look, that's really subjective. So I just want to like really acknowledge people that, you know, have gone through trauma. It's not a desirable situation to be in, whether it was, you know, you growing up and that's been, you know, that was the case growing up or now as an adult. But I also feel like at some point we have a choice as adults, we have a responsibility to ourselves to really change the narrative on the way our lives get to be. And it really takes that decision. And honestly, it's I know it's easier said than done. I get it. This is my world, my work now. So I get, for me, it's my way of life. But it wasn't always my way of life. As positive as I may sound, it doesn't mean that like, oh, it just like happened overnight. No, I fought for this life because I really acted like my life depended on it, because for me it did. You
Mhm.
know, I think that the shift for me was just changing the perspective, right? Like nothing happens to me, it happens for me. Like I know damn well none of what I have been through was for no reason, like for sure. You
Absolutely.
know, and so, and I'm not saying that, you know, people have to turn their pain into, you know, this purpose and, you know, and like you don't even have to do that. I'm not even saying you got to do that, but this is like your life, right? This is someone's life. And you, every day when you wake up and you make the choice that you're going to let this like really interfere with, you know, everything you got going on, all your potential and everything, that is a choice that you're making every single day that is not serving you, right? I think just really changing the story and the perspective on that, but also healing is a big part of it. And you have to want to heal. Like I feel like some people want to stay in the anger and in the rage because of the idea of like, well, there's nothing I could do. You can't change it. I can't go back in time. I can't fix it. You know, if I would have thought that like, well, I can't change anything, I wouldn't be here today, because the reality is I can't change anything. What I could change is my attitude. I could change, how I react to it. I could change how I show up every single day for myself, despite everything I've been through, because I owe it to myself. I owe it to that little girl who unfortunately had no choice. Right? I'm not a little girl anymore, though. I have a choice every day. When I wake up, I make the choice to choose myself, to choose a better life, even if, some days is just tough. But I still am trying the best I can, because there's just no option. It's like there's not another option for me. When you don't give yourself the option to do anything else, right? Or to like think anything that's not going to serve you, you're just going to show up for yourself. It's really a change of mindset and perception.
Yeah. Now, it's funny that you bring that up as far as referencing that little girl. And the reason why I say that is because as an adult, as a grown man, I find that I have to reference that child on numerous occasions. And I almost in a third party sense. Do you
Mhm.
find that you have to do that and acknowledge her to heal? And that's a part of your healing process?
That is 100% a part of my healing process. It's, let's just even call it a strategy. I've been in therapy since, I just told you, since I was younger. I was, a teenager. I have never stopped being in therapy. I don't have the same therapist, because you outgrow therapists, but I started to do this. Have you ever heard of EMDR?
Yes.
Okay, so I started to do, it's like trauma informed therapy.
Yes.
And I started to do the work with her. Her and I have done so much healing and work around my inner child, to the point where if someone was listening in on our conversation, they would probably think we're a little nuts, because we have conversations with 5-year-old Maria, 7-year-old Maria, 10-year-old Maria. And the reason it's really important to understand those parts of you when you were a child is because as an adult, I get triggered by certain things, right? Let's say my relationship, and I really can discern if that's adult Maria or if that's 17-year-old Maria who's super triggered because she's feeling attacked and she feels like, oh my gosh, I need to be out. This is not safe, right? And so learning about the younger parts of me has allowed me to not only deepen my relationship with myself, but with other people, like have healthier relationships, understanding myself, and also being there for younger me is really healing, because there was no one that could be there for her, at that time when everything was happening. So I feel like I am making up in a way for, those moments where I didn't have anyone and I didn't have the love. I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard. So it's very, very, it feels really relieving for me to be able to go back and have that relationship, which could feel a little weird when you're not used to this kind of work. But yeah, 100%, it's changed my life.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because my wife is actually in the field of therapy, and she's finishing out her degree, and she talks to me about this stuff all the time. And I think it's very interesting, to say the least, when we look in retrospect and acknowledge ourselves in the third party. You know what I mean? And again, a perfect topic that you brought up is transference, right? We acknowledge that things that we go through as adults, and a good portion of time is transference from traumatic experiences, from childhood, from abandonment, from all the things that happen to us as children and as young adults that we're developing. So I think it's amazing to see that when you get to this space that you're in, that you have the ability to discern what is that transference and where it's coming from, as opposed to, is that really me? Is that really me as the adult Maria Concha, or is that child? Because I think that is a major factor in not only the healing process, into understanding what's going on in life, right? Because unfortunately, the reality is, I think, especially for those of us who have or been in recovery, who have been in therapy, who experience this kind of stuff, we understand to some degree where this stuff comes from and how it's affecting our current lives. And a lot of people go through daily life not knowing that these experiences are not necessarily coming from the adult them, but from that child. So I think that's really amazing, and kudos to you for having that, because that is a major step in the healing process. And to have a healthy relationship, right? And again, coming from the backgrounds that we come from, seeing the relationships that we've seen as young kids, for me, I'll say, I don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. I don't know what it's like to be a man in a healthy relationship. My identity as a man is the provider. Now, I've only learned this recently with my wife, because I'm cut from that cloth and I come from that background. I have the identity of work, 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 make money, and provide. That is my job, to make sure my wife is secure. Not knowing that my wife needs attention, not knowing or understanding my wife needs intimacy. She needs emotional connection. So these are things that we are taught. Now, as a young lady, what would you say that you were taught or that you observed that you realize is contrary to having a healthy relationship?
I mean, I think growing up, my mother had extreme codependency
Mhm.
issue. She was a terrified woman, still is a very terrified woman, to the point where she is still with the man who abused me because she's so terrified of being alone. I don't think I saw healthy relationships, but I think what helped me was I saw what I didn't want,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, that is, and I wouldn't have said it as a kid, right? Like, that's not healthy. That's not, I wouldn't have said that as a kid. I just knew, like, that is scary. I guess in my body, it just felt scary. I'm like, that doesn't feel safe. That is unsafe. I think I was very fueled by the anger of how could you choose a man, a relationship over your children. So like in my head, I'm like, I'll never do that, right? And so now it was, I'll never rely on a man. But then that also could be to my detriment,
Mhm.
right? Because then I meet these really great men or potential partners, and I'm sabotaging what could be a fruitful relationship because I'm not trying to like receive, and I have my like Miss Independent hat on, and my man's just trying to like look out for me and trying to take me to dinners.
Yeah.
And and it's like a beautiful, what could be a beautiful moment in relationship. I'm like, no. And it's because I have this like garden wall up, and it's that also like not healthy, right? That's also like not okay. I think that I do feel that I was fortunate to be able to have been, and I was just talking about this the other day with someone, blessed to my first relationship, my first boyfriend, I was about 13 years old. And he really set the precedent for like my relationships. He treated me so well. And I was 13 and he treated me so well. And he was so kind to me. And he was so loving and really put me on like a pedestal in like a beautiful way that I think that really set the tone for how I wanted to be treated.
Mhm.
And I'm really grateful to him. And I don't know like how I was able to attract such a wonderful person in my life I was 13. What do I know about relationships? But that was really, really helpful. I also think that of course it wasn't perfect, but I think I was just afraid to be in any kind of toxic relationship. If it, like I said, if it was scary, then I was just like kind of saying no. But I think it's impacted me a lot, like just watching my mom be the way she is, and also just your family around you. Yeah, I was like I was closed off, and my identity, Jason, was I'm a provider. So I took that on. I'm a provider. I guess you're done. Like, ain't nobody messing with me, independent. And to the point where I literally work like if I have a someone said this to me, you work like if you have a family of 10 to feed.
Yeah.
That's just how, and so I also had to work on being more in my feminine because I was so in my masculine, but that was just because I had no choice. I had to, I had to do that. But in a relationship, and I'm sure you know this, and with your wife, like you got to have that balance, because if not, you could easily sabotage such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Now that also becomes an armor, right? As we all know, I'm
Hmm.
independent. Nobody can get to me. You
Yeah.
know, same thing as a male. I'm tough. I've been through a lot. Nobody can touch me.
Hmm.
Nobody needs to understand me. Just let me do my thing. And the reality is, and I think you can identify with this, and you touched on it, is that realistically, the thing that's actually going on is that scared child is there, and he's petrified of allowing someone in that intimate place because he doesn't want to get hurt, right? You don't want anybody to penetrate that barrier because you don't want to feel pain or you don't want to feel abandonment. Now, how is it that all of this brings you to this place? Here you are doing all of this stuff. How is it that you go about teaching the next person, right? Because we understand, I think, that all people learn differently. So what is it that you do when you are doing these coachings and these, retreats and stuff like that? How do you identify the person and the course or the mechanism in which you're going to help them?
So I can obviously only speak from my experiences, right? So I'm not for everyone, and I'm okay with that,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
My job is to just show up, be myself. I help people really just identify, the blocks and what's holding them back from the life that they truly want to be living. But half the battle is just awareness of things, right? So, how we were talking about how like we have awareness of the younger parts of us that may be interfering with certain things because of our trauma. And so we can like discern when that part of us comes out and stuff like that, right? So the people that I work with don't necessarily have that awareness fully. And so what I did is I created a course, like what I call my foundation. And it was literally what I did within the past over a decade now, like, to help me get to this place. So I thought like, okay, how can I, one, simplify the heck out of this process? Because I'm all about like, I need you to like simplify stuff for me. I'm like really just straightforward. If I was a 10-year-old kid, like how would I like give it to a 10-year-old kid? Right. And so I just simplified the strategies and like the process of what I went through for the past 11 plus years. And I packaged it into this program, and I did it in a way where we just process information week by week. And then, we will work through it. And a lot of that work is like just really tapping into what it is to have limiting beliefs, like really just straightforward, like what are limiting beliefs. And a lot of the times people will think like, well, I don't think I have, Maria, I got those things, right? And then when we start working on them, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was talking to myself in that way. And so I have just found ways to really have people identify with certain behaviors in their lives and patterns that are holding them back. And with like limiting beliefs, sabotaging behavior, and also helping them have the clarity and confidence to really go after what they truly want. Self-worth is a huge one. I'm a big believer that your life is a result of what you think you are worthy of having in your life, or what you think is possible for you.
Mhm.
So it's not just, I don't think it's just like, oh, having a positive mindset. It's beyond having a positive mindset. It's healing around, like deep healing around these wounds. Most of them are childhood wounds that have affected us as adults. And those things affect how we show up in life, how we take action or don't take action. From something as simple as, oh, I just, people like sign up for the gym and they're like, oh, I can't go to the gym, I'm so inconsistent or whatever. Like we think that, oh, we like label it as I'm just lazy, or like, no, this is not, like, it goes deeper than that. And and it also doesn't have to take you forever, which is a big thing for me. I really want to collapse time for people, right? I don't want it to take them as long as it took me, and it doesn't have to, because they don't have to do the research. I've like done it, right? So that's the idea behind what I do.
Yeah, and it's actually, there was a study, and don't quote me verbatim because I'm not going to quote it verbatim, but there was a study that came out recently, and I think it was Psychology Today or one of the, psychology magazines or
Mhm.
scientific studies that show that we are more prone to negativity than we are to positivity. And we reinforce, like you said, we reinforce that negativity on a day-to-day basis. And those ideas of, well, I'm not going to go to the gym today, I'm just tired, or I'm lazy, it's not actually completely not true. And what I found to be true is that the most productive times that I have in my life are those times in which I do not want to do something, right? I don't wake up daily and say, oh my God, I cannot wait to go kill myself in the gym. Or, oh my God, I cannot wait to work 10 hours a day to make a living and to really work at my business. But when I work through that, that's when I have the most production. And those things that we are taught, like you said, a lot of people don't even realize the impact I think that that has on their life because
Mhm.
it's so easy for, I think, as society and as people, it's so easy for us to give ourselves an out, right? Not having an option is a great experience because you know that there's no back, there's no other way. You have to
Mhm.
go forward. And that's the way in which I think success is driven, is understanding there's no shortcut, there's no easy route, there's no I'm gonna figure it out, I'm gonna do it easier, I'm gonna do it better. No, it's just hard work done relentlessly every single day. And I think it's amazing that you have this experience to bring to women to show them that anything is possible. No matter what background that you come from, anything is possible. And it's important to understand that just because we come from specific backgrounds, specific environments, specific trauma, that does not have to define the outcome of your life. Like I have a great saying, and it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. You know what I mean? And that's ultimately the outcome in which has led me to where I am, and I'm sure it's led you to where you are. Now, what is the kind of stuff that's going on for you today? What do you have coming up? What's the journey like for Maria Concha today, and what is life like? Tell me what life and the experience of life is like today.
Yeah. Well, I just want to add something to what you were saying, Jason, because I'm really passionate about, that topic of just understanding like we are like the world is prone to negativity. And I just want to add to that, like we are conditioned from when we are, young babies till when we're older. Why? Because everything around most things around us in society, our culture is like the news is all negative. Like why can't the news be streaming really great things in the world? Right. And so there's like so much negativity in the news, like negative propaganda. And that, our society in a way wants to like keep us in fear. And it's a choice that you make by listening to the news. Again, we're going to go back to choices, right? Unless you're a freaking journalist and this is your job, like there's no reason that you need to see what's going on in the news, what's going on like over there, like unless you are directly impacting, and like helping and like you need to like be in the know, then I probably you wouldn't go. If you were that person, you wouldn't even be looking at mainstream media. You would do it a different way, right? So I think there are things that people can do actively every single day to try to move them away from the negativity and the fear and those limiting beliefs, because all that's going to do is fuel the fear even more.
Yeah.
Things like, don't put the news on. How about that? Right? Don't listen to things that are going to brainwash you into being in fear. That was like the number one thing that I did that completely shifted my world, which was I decided I was no longer going to be in fear. What can I control right now? And I could control not putting on the TV, not listening to the radio. I don't listen to any of that stuff. I don't need to brainwash myself. I brainwash myself for the good stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So anyhow, I just wanted to say like that, there's a lot going on in our world that really fuels the fear. Yeah. So, okay, what's going on in my world? So right now, my life consists of, well, I'll be completely honest, it's been a really tough year. I lost my sister to cancer, and that was I think that was the hardest thing I've ever experienced.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that was really tough. So that's been really difficult, and that completely threw me off. And the beauty in it is that I'm like a person, obviously, like anyone else. I run my business and stuff, but like at the end of the day, I still have to show up for work.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you work for, for a corporation and you have a loss in your life, you can't like just take off forever. It doesn't work like that. You don't go to work, you're not getting paid. And so it really just showed me, I like learned so much about myself, but also I've been working through a lot of grief, and like it's the first time I really have experienced grief on this level. So in true Maria nature, I have turned my work, I have infused my work with, with what I've experienced. And I am hosting a retreat for women in Costa Rica in January. And it's very much inspired by the grief and what I like to call rupture rapture, which is rupture when the moment your heart completely breaks and aches, right? Because something happens. Rapture when you're in pleasure and in joy. I have the ability to hold both in my body. And I want to teach others how to do that, right? Because something like a death of someone, like my sister was like my mom, and watching her slowly wither away is just extremely traumatizing and something really hard to watch, right? That you can't, no matter how positive you are, there is no spin to that. It is a screwed up situation. She's a mother of two, so I had that heartache, heartbreak, gut wrenching experience. And then on the other hand, I was also having these incredible, joyous wins in my life and my business and my company with my partner. And so like this retreat is very much inspired by this idea of like, you can be in this heartbreak, you can be in these moments of losses, but also you can balance it out and receive the good in your life as well. So I was inspired by that. And so that led me to the manifesting retreat that I'm doing. And then I have my Manifesting Ninja Academy, which is, like I mentioned to you, like the foundational course that I do. It's a 2-month program, a group coaching program. And really my life, and I'm a speaker, so I like to speak. Now I'm like getting in person a lot more. So I'm so happy. I speak around the world. I have, which I'm just like wild to even say, like I'm a kid from Queens, like we're, you know what I mean? Like it just, you would have told me back then, like, girl, you're going to have like clients in Sweden and South Africa and like do all these cool things. It's just really incredible. And the more that I achieve, or I don't even want to say achieve, but the more that I experience, the more that I can just light the path and lead the way for others. Like I'm like that girl that I'm like, yo, we can do this. Like, come on, like if I did it, like I have this for you. Like, here's the bridge. Let's go. And so it's just like I think it's a time where I'm still in very much heartbreak. I have to figure it out every single day. It's not easy going through this. Grief is like non-linear. I don't know if you've ever experienced, grief, loss of, close, you probably have actually. It's not, or like sometimes we go through grief, but we don't deal with it. I have no choice, I'm dealing with it. It's the first time I think that I've allowed myself to really experience all the feelings and emotions that I used to shy away from before. So a lot of my work is fueled by pain. I laugh at it because I'm like, really, like I just turn it into so much purposeful work and just, yeah. And so that's what I do. I speak, I coach, I travel. I spend a lot of time with my partner. We've been together for 11 years now. We have a dog. I'm a very family driven person. And a lot of what I do is inspired and led by just my why, which is I do this for me, little me. I do this for my family, for my friends, and for the people that I know I'm meant to inspire and impact.
I gotta say, Maria, not only do I identify with you so much, I mean, across the board, but that's what makes you you, because you are so relatable to so many people on so many different levels, right? And that's what gives us in general the opportunity to do this, is because you come from a background in which, one, not many young women and not many young men come out of. Two, you took that in such a way and ultimately overcame in such a way that people can really look to you and say, wow, that is an amazing story. That is something I aspire to be. And just hearing you and listening to you, I mean, it really is amazing because I'm in so many ways, I'm like, wow, like this woman has been through so much, has so much trauma. And instead of saying life is unfair, I'm hurt, I'm upset, in which so many of us do, you're taking that and saying, no, I'm hurt and I am upset, but I am not going to stop because I have a purpose. And that purpose is much bigger than my own personal pain. And that, I have to say, is absolutely amazing to see because it doesn't happen very often. And, to have this experience, to be a life coach, to be a mentor, you understand that there's such a responsibility there, and you are the perfect woman for it. I have to say, just in listening to you, you are the perfect woman for it. So really, I mean, I'm amazed just listening to you. And, as when you touched on grief, like I can identify, I lost my uncle who was like my dad, who raised me, who died from drug addiction. I lost a lot of my good friends from drug addiction. And there's so many of us out there that are going through these things, who have lost people that we love, who don't know how to cope. And I think the message that you just gave is absolutely perfect. Because you know what? At the end of the day, what other choice do we have? And if we choose to make those situations our detriment, how are we honoring those we lost? You know what I mean? So thank you for that. I mean, it's really amazing to hear. Now, do you have anything upcoming that you'd like to plug besides Costa Rica? I mean, I'd love to go on that Costa Rica trip. That's awesome.
Well,
That's absolutely awesome.
it's funny, Jason, because so Jeff and I, is my partner, he's totally a part of my brand because he's my family, and you know what I mean. And so we have talked about like doing a couples retreat, because I love empowering like both, the couple, like, you know what I mean, like as a whole, because I just know what that's done for my relationship with Jeff. So don't be surprised if at some point we do like a couples retreat. But yeah, I think right now really it's the academy that I have going on. Which, like I said, it's a 2-month program. And then I have a couple of retreats happening. And then I'm just like speaking a lot more in New York. I actually want to go back to our roots. I'm going to try to see if I can donate my time to our junior high school and my high school and my college, and really just get the message out there. One of the things that I always want to do is make this make my message and this purpose be able to reach so many. And I know that not everyone can afford to. The truth is, some of my stuff, it's like high ticket stuff, and that's just it's how I built my business. But I always make sure like to give back. And so just for just because that's just the way that I am. I remember what it was like when I was broke as all heck. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing. I'm like touring. There's like a book happening. There's just a couple of things that are,
Right.
I'm just working towards things. But yeah, the academy and my retreat, I have a couple of retreats
Now,
happening.
how can women find you? And you specifically, I just want to clarify, you specifically designed this towards women, correct?
Anyone can do. So no, this is not just for women.
Okay.
I empower women, right? And like my niche is women. However, this work is not just for women.
Yeah.
When I first started coaching, I was coaching anyone and everyone who would let me. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And so I worked with men. I love working with men. The reason I love working with men is because they're so stubborn. Not everyone, I'm speaking right, like broadly, but the ones I worked with are so stubborn, and to see the change in them, it just is like life to me.
Yeah.
To see where their lives are now is amazing, absolutely incredible. So the programs are not just for women. I market them to women, but the work is the work. It's not like for a woman or a man. It's for anyone who is willing to grow beyond the place that they have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's for everyone.
Now, where can people find you in order to
Yep.
If they're interested, someone's
Yeah.
looking, where can they find you?
So my website is manifestingninja.com. So www.manifestingninja.com. And then I really hang a lot on Instagram, which is at manifesting ninja. But yeah, I think those are two. And then if anyone wants to join the retreat or find information, you could apply for the retreat at manifestingretreat.com.
Excellent. Okay, and the IG is the same thing, Manifesting Ninja.
Manifesting Ninja, everything is, yep,
Hear
anytime,
that, guys?
anywhere.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate that. Maria, thank you very much for coming. This has been a bomb episode. So guys, go out and check her out. She's awesome. She has a lot to offer. You'll be missing out if you don't. So go check her out. Again, we thank you for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate it. We are definitely going to have you back at some point because we're going to keep a close eye on you and see the things that you're doing. Because I just want to say one more time, not to get your head up anymore, but it is absolutely amazing to see the journey in which you come from, the background in which you come from, the lifestyle, to turn into a woman that is aspiring, inspirational. You know, you have all the attributes, and it's amazing to see. And I really commend you on your journey. So thank you for coming through, and we appreciate it. And with that, guys, we're going to close it out. Watch us again. We got some more upcoming shows. So thank you, guys, and we will be back soon. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.